Hey everybody, it's Andrew here at Vespa Portland, coming from my own basement this time, doing a little bit of a different video. This video is all about things you can do over the winter. Winter, by far, is my least favorite season. It's harder to ride, it's colder all the time, I miss the warmth on my skin, etc. So if that's for you as well, maybe you're putting away the scooter at this time of year and waiting for sunnier days to get back out on the road. And if that's the case, here's a bunch of stuff you can do to keep yourself occupied until that time comes. If you're still riding though, here's just some fun stuff to check out while you continue to brave the elements. So the first thing I should say is if you're local to Portland, you should definitely join up, and you're riding, you should join up in our Winter Riders Challenge that we put on each year. Basically, you take a picture of your odometer, the total miles, and then you send that to us on Instagram or Facebook. We log the miles and then we check with you sometimes every now and then throughout the winter. Otherwise, we just wait until the end of winter, which I think is March 19th or 20th of 2022. And then we see just who had the most miles. Obviously, you shouldn't be riding in the ice. You shouldn't be riding in the snow. Don't put yourself in danger for this thing. It's just a fun little thing to do to kind of see who's putting up the most miles in the most miserable months. You do have to be in the Portland area to participate in this, but if you're in a different cold location that's still somewhat rideable, maybe talk to your local dealership and they could get one running too. It's a fun little competition to pass the time. So I broke this up into various categories. Things you can watch, things you can read, things you can listen to, places you can connect with other riders, and things to do if you go out of town. So we'll start with things to watch. Very first and foremost, you're on our YouTube channel here. You've potentially been around a while, but if you haven't, you can scroll back and there's some kind of more lifestyle kind of videos. There's spring scoot videos from 3 years, I think, worth of those. We also have a playlist of Mexico ride videos from a ride I did with some friends in Mexico in 2019, where we went from Mexico City to Guadalajara on Vespas. Super fun, little 4-day trip, easy to digest. I think the whole thing's like an hour long and it's broken up into 4 parts. There's another channel on YouTube that you may know of as a Vespa rider. It's Vespa Motorsport, Scooter West. They do a ton of parts videos and things like that. There's a lot of tech videos on there. They're friends of ours. We don't try to overlap videos too much because there's no real point in doing that. So we sort of offer different content. But same with them. Back in 2015, they did a Mexico ride series. It was 12 days from San Diego down to Mexico City for a rally. The videos are longer. They're probably 10 to 15 minutes each. And each one covers a day in the trip down there from San Diego. It's super cool. And if you ever get the chance to ride your scooter in another country, highly recommend that. It'll make you daydream about doing it if you watch their videos and potentially our Mexico series as well. They have also a series about getting the scooters prepped for that ride and actually doing the ride. If you want to see the video that kind of started it all, Quadrophenia, the mods versus rockers whole thing, that's an angsty kind of coming of age film from England, worth watching. A little cringy, but still pretty good, kind of classic scooter cinema. And lastly, my friend Derek and his scooter club Soldiers of Destiny from Seattle did essentially the scooter cannonball in 2016, riding Yamaha Zumas from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, all the way up to Mukilteo, Washington, so basically Seattle. And it was an 11-day trip, something like 3,100 miles, maybe 37, I can't remember. But that's on Amazon Prime. I think it's free on Amazon Prime for a Prime member. If not, it's like $3. It's pretty funny. It's worth it. It's a nice document of the trip they did. And my friend Derek is in it. Speaking of, oh, hey, dude.
Oh, hey.
It's weird. Never know who you're going to see down here. All right, moving on to things to read. The first one is Vroom with a View. And its counterpart is Vroom by the Sea. And as I understand it, it's about riding around Europe, namely Italy, I believe, on scooters. Another book you can check out is America by Vespa, from Chicago to Los Angeles on Route 66. Sounds like a fun ride to me. If you want to focus on a little bit of southern riding, as in Southern California, there's a book called Scooter Chronicles, a California Modacy, which is, I think Scooter West actually has it available. You can buy it from them. And lastly, if you're in the Portland area, the Multnomah County Library is fantastic. And I don't know if you've ever searched Vespa or a scooter in their catalog, but there's a ton of books. especially in the central location. There's a local zine that used to be put out called Bump Start and Kickstart by Karen Geising and other contributing writers. And that was a Portland zine. It's kind of a cool like look back in time at what was going on in the scene around then. And a couple of those issues are actually at the library, and you can just check them out. It's pretty cool. But there's also professionally done hardbound books about the history of Vespa and people's different trips and whatever else. So moving on to things to listen to, I'm going to recommend 3 different podcasts. The first one, Chasing Ghosts on Scooters in Bars, is put on by Mark Helgen and his group of buddies up in the Tacoma, Washington area. They've been doing the podcast now for probably 5 years, I would guess, at this point. They're into probably over 50, maybe 60 episodes at this time. There's some funny banter. They go on a lot of rides to various bars around the Washington State area, around the South Sound. They go on longer trips every year called Pub Scoot. They interview bar staff a lot about whether or not a particular bar is haunted. It's just a pretty entertaining little podcast. And more about Mark and his ventures to come up at the end of this video. The second podcast I'd recommend you check out is called The Scooter Affair. This is more interviews with people like Josh Rogers from the Vespa Club of America, Phil from Genuine Scooters, who got that off the ground, and various other people who are kind of significant in the scooter scene. It's a pretty cool podcast. It's pretty short, and then it's just an interview asking questions about their time with scooters and whatnot. It's a good listen. And the last one, pointing back to our friends at Vespa Motorsport for a second, they did a podcast series back in 2016, 17-ish, and a lot of it is kind of based around the San Diego scooter scene, but there's some stuff that's a little further afield as well and worth looking at. And with the Vespa Motorsport podcast, you can either listen to it wherever you normally get a podcast, and they also recorded each one on YouTube, so you can watch it there too. All right, so let's talk places to connect. In the Portland area, probably the most active Facebook group is called Portland Scooter Club. In the nicer months, Gina, who leads it, puts on a lot of good rides, but of course you're welcome to put on rides as well. It's not only a one-way street from Gina to everybody else, but there's a lot of good discussion on there. It's also a place where unfortunately stolen scooters pop up, pictures of or reports about, and sometimes people get their bike returned to them. There's also just general scooter discussion. How do you keep things safe? Here's some history of this or that, etc. And everyone on there is really cool, in my opinion. And they put on some fun rides in the summer months, spring, summer, fall. And some of those videos, rides that they've done, are actually on our YouTube channel as well. On a more national scale, if Facebook is your thing, there is a group called the Modern USA Vespa Discussion Group. Also worth checking out. It's a little more like photos of everyone around the country. There's some discussion about scooters, about parts, about rides, whatever. But because it's national, obviously you're going to have pictures of someone sitting on a beach in Florida while someone in Chicago is kind of wishing they could ride. So it's kind of cool. You can kind of live vicariously through the people in the warmer parts of the country. And that's another fun one to kind of keep up with. And then if you don't ride a Vespa, you ride a Buddy, say, for example, there's actually a Modern Buddy Facebook group as well. Same sort of thing, photos of buddies, conversations about buddies. I think you get the gist at this point. Just places to connect with other riders on social media and kind of daydream about riding on the internet. So if you want to get out of town and go ride a scooter somewhere else, there is one place, at least, that has a connection to Vespa Portland. So in the early 2000s, Justin Fisher used to own Vespa Portland and decided the Portland weather was not for him. And so he moved himself and his family down to Las Vegas. And they run Red Rock scooter tours out of Las Vegas now. Last I checked, it was like the highest rated outdoor activity to do in Las Vegas outside of like a helicopter tour. Essentially what happens is you get picked up at your hotel, and then if you've ridden before, I think you get put on the faster Buddy. If you haven't ridden before, I think you get put on a Sim Mio, and all the scooters are provided, and you ride around like a 13-mile closed loop around Red Rock's National Monument, if I've got it right. But, double check me, of course, before you go about hours and whatnot. But it's called Red Rock Scooter Tours, and it's in Las Vegas. If you're looking to get out of the country, you can always take off to Italy, where there are, of course, numerous Vespa tours. Some friends of ours at the shop have done one called the Vespa Trip, which will take you through Tuscany. Terry did that one. There's also, the same company will do one in Amalfi on the coast and in Sicily. I'm pretty sure he's got plans to go back and do those again, but again, they provide the Vespas, 150cc and maybe 300s if I recall correctly, and they'll take you on like a 5-day tour around Tuscany, around Amalfi, or around Sicily, whatever you decide. If you want to go up north, there was a place last I checked called Moto Ragazzi, which means like motor boys. And they had ones up in like Lake Como, Lake Garda, and things like that. But keep in mind that the northern part of Italy is similar to the northern part of the US, where there's going to be snow and it's going to be cold. So if it's wintertime, you're probably going to want to go south, down into the Tuscany, probably at the highest, but Amalfi Coast and Sicily would probably be much warmer. If you end up in Hawaii, Hawaii's got scooter rentals everywhere. Don't really have a recommendation there. It's just Google it when you get there. And then also know that recently Hawaii made legal their own sort of lane splitting where you can't actually lane split between cars, but it's now legal to just ride in the shoulder. If there's traffic, you just go around the cars in the shoulder. Of course, the shoulder is where debris is too, so hopefully you don't run over a screw or nail or something, but that is now legal there, and it will help you get around in places like Honolulu that are just packed with traffic, and be able to actually see the place instead of sitting in a rental car. So let's talk about some stuff to look forward to. The big one, at least that I'm excited about, is Spring Scoot 2022. I don't know which number we're on now. I kind of lost track. It was like 23, 24, 25, and then there was cancellations for what feels like 100 years. Twist and Play Scooter Club, the local scooter club in Portland that puts this event on every year, is going to bring it back in 2022, and I'm stoked about that. The date is going to change though. Spring Scoot's usually like the first weekend of April. They're trying to push this thing just a bit further into the year just in case some kind of variant pops up or some kind of closure happens from the state or whatever. So the new dates are going to be May 20th to 23rd. And this is a fun time. Definitely if you're a new rider, or you've been riding a little while, but you've never come out to it or whatever, it's worth seeing. It's pretty fun. There's hundreds of scooters out. It's a 3-day thing. Friday night meetup, Friday night ride. Saturday day, there's usually a breakfast and then a ride. You never know how they're going to change it because obviously the world's kind of in flux right now. And then a Sunday, there's usually a breakfast and then they ride out to a hotel. Typically either the Edgefield Winery in, I think, Gresham or Troutdale, and then some years, and then also west to the Grand Lodge McMenamins in Forest Grove other years. Either way, it's going to be a great time, and a lot of people come in town from out of town, Canadians, people from Sacramento, had some San Diego friends come up before, people from Idaho, and then of course a lot of Portland and Seattle people. So if you can make it out, definitely come out to that. It's the coolest event of the year, I think, in the Portland scooter community, and we're lucky that club puts in the work to get it done every year they can. And lastly, I want to give you some news about a brand new Vespa dealer in the Pacific Northwest. This is also pretty cool. So earlier on in the video here, I was telling you about the podcast Chasing Ghosts on Scooters in Bars, run by Mark Helgen and his riding friends up in Tacoma. Mark decided to leave his job in the boat business and is going to open up a Vespa-specific dealership in Tacoma called South Sound Scooters. And the target is the end of January opening at best, maybe early February more likely at this point. But you can follow South Sound Scooters on Instagram and of course on their website and kind of get updates about how the construction is going. But as far as I know, it's going to be a Vespa specific dealership and in the Tacoma area. So the South Sound area finally gets some representation, finally gets their own place, and Mark is into this scene. Obviously, he does a podcast. They're not getting paid for that. There's no sponsorship. And so, Mark is definitely an enthusiast of scooters, and I think he's going to do a great job with that shop and with the community up there, which, it might become a hub of that whole South Sound area, Olympia, Tacoma. So that's some good news if you live up that way. We've serviced some folks out of the Olympia area, some folks out of the Tacoma area. Thank you for your business in Portland. If you want to keep coming to us, that's totally fine. But if you don't want to put your bike on a trailer, I understand. And there is now going to be a shop available to you in the Tacoma area called South Sound Scooters. South Sound Scooters is going to be located on 1938 Market Street. So real excited for Mark on that. All right, well, that about comes to the end of stuff that I can recommend that you do over the winter time. Hopefully that works out for you, but if it doesn't, I don't know, book a flight to Palm Springs. Works for me every year. This is Andrew here at Vespa Portland. Thanks for watching. Happy winter.